Central is better than the AL Central. There's 3 playoff teams in the AL Central. Damn near 4 with Minnesota.
Talking about playoff teams in the AL Central, you can't compare that to the NL.
You didn't forget how those records were inflated with the Chicago White Sox.
Yeah,
I understand
team in the
that.
history of the Major League Baseball that's running it back this year.
But the Guards went all the way to the ALCS.
And they got worse.
Disagree.
Yes,
you all
objectively got worse, but go ahead.
Disagree.
How so, Mike?
Because you're gonna get production from Manzardo. He'll fill in the 30 home runs that Naylor hit last year.
Give me their subtractions and give me their addition.
You lost Naylor, who, in my opinion, was probably a nuisance to the team as it is for everything that I've heard from people that covered the team.
A lot of offensive production there. You lost a lot of defensive production with Jimenez there.
Jimenez was just walking strikeout at the plate and couldn't hit the ball. I'm completely fine with him walking.
He's an elite glove. Point being, they got worse. Maybe they'll play better. Maybe they will. But they won. What are they? A year removed from 90 wins. You cannot sit here and tell me that team has gotten better in the last 3 months.
I don't think they've gotten worse. I think that's a bad take, but fair play.
If you think it's addition by subtraction, please go ahead. Detroit probably hanging around right where they were, maybe a little better than that.
Detroit made the playoffs last year. Kansas City made the playoffs last year, and you just said Bobby Witt's an MVP candidate.
Okay. And then how about, so what'd you say about the Reds about 8 minutes ago?
I think it's top heavy with the Cubbies and the Reds.
And what about the Brewers?
I guess
so. You can't say that about the Guardians when their comparison is the Brewers.
Comparatively, the 4 teams in the Guardians, the Tigers, the Royals, and the Twins are better than any 4 teams in that division. I would take those 4.
They have the worst team of them all. They have the worst team. They have an inflator right there at the bottom of it.
Dude, the Guards, if you look at our record against the White Sox, we did not play good against the White Sox.
It doesn't matter.
We went 500 against the White Sox, still won 90 games.
Mike, they lost 120 games. It doesn't matter. They have the ultimate inflator. I cannot take that division is that much better with them sitting there.
The AL Central, I don't even think it's a conversation. Better in the NL Central. Understand.
It's the worst division in baseball. Let's just call it like we see it. It's fine. You're allowed to be. You were last year. You're getting this year. I don't care about the 3 playoff teams. Bad division. Easy division. It's a bad league, and it's a bad division in a bad league. That's why.
But I'm telling you, the NL Central's worse. But tomato. I do like the Cubbies and the Reds, though, to both probably be around that 85, 86 window. I think the Cubbies could possibly win 92 if they are able to. St. Louis has kind of been in a thorn in their side for a long time. Even when St. Louis wasn't necessarily playing well last year, the Cubbies would stub their foot to them. So, nonetheless, I think if they could dominate the division, Colin, I think the Cubs will probably win 90 games and win that division.
Yeah, the Pirates are not going to be very good, but they still... have their couple options here and there. Maybe they'll surprise some people. They got the bona fide star. And then the way I look at it is the Brewers are always going to be around because the Brewers are a tremendously run team. Always. Always have been. And I know they lost their general manager, they lost their manager, the whole thing. But it's still just a well-run team. And then the Cubs are sitting there, and you get the Reds who are probably going to be taking steps forward with Francona. And there's no White Sox. There's no White Sox. That is a big glaring stain in a bad league in a bad division.
The Tigers played very well in the playoffs. I know Kansas City, New York ran roughshod over Kansas City. I think that was maybe a case of not being in the playoffs for the last, 8 years? But Detroit played Cleveland very well. They had us on the ropes a few times.
And had the AL Central playing each other, and then they all get to the Yankees. And great series, great 2 games. But they lost in 5.
I don't know, man.
And the Yankees walk into the World Series, and then they get destroyed.
I was proud of the way the Guards played the Yankees, but hindsight 2020, no one stood a chance against an NL team that past year.
Right. And the Yankees were that much better than everybody else, and the NL was that much better than them. When the Dodgers were tremendously more challenged in the previous rounds in the NL comparatively.
But the only reason I got heated about the NL Central, the Brewers, they completely made the playoffs and fell on their face. I understand the NL was comparatively better than the AL.
Now you can't talk about playoff success when you're comparing it to the AL Central. You can't do that. It's not fair. You can't do that. That's not fair. Not that you can't. You
didn't have any of those teams kind of flirting. I think 85 wins, I guess comparatively. No, it's just the NL. I'm talking about the NL Central, the teams comparatively last year who had the better records. I don't know. I probably still would have taken a lot of those AL Central's teams more than the NL Central teams, but I get the argument of the White Sox and the case study there, how many games, because the Royals beat the hell out of the White Sox. I
So
mean,
that whole division did. And
besides the Guardians,
I don't have the record in front of me. They beat up on that team remove 4 wins from everybody.
Yeah,
and then you'll get a sense of how good they were. That I can't do that with the ultimate inflator, the worst team in the history of the sport sitting there. I can't talk about that division being anything worse than the worst in the league. I can't do that. That's not fair.
Guardians 8-5 against the White Sox in 2024.
Guardians 8-5.
Comparatively to the other teams that played them, Christian, in the division, 8-5.
That doesn't further my opinion or detract from it. I just want to provide that.
All right. Bad division. But
I just disagree on that. I totally there's no need to keep going through it, but I think there are 4 playoff teams in that, and I think this year with the current Yankee team and how open the AL is, I think you could see a Central team in the World Series.
Is the AL Central better than the AL East?
Probably not with the Red Sox.
Not. Just no. No's fine. Is it worse than there's an argument here. Is it worse than the AL West? It's not.
It depends what Oakland is. What Las Vegas is. Is that fair?
No.
I think it depends what Las Vegas.
You have your World Series. You have your World Series favorite. AL favorite coming out of the West, and you got Houston sitting there, who's always going to be in the mix, and
Seattle's 85.
Seattle's a mid 80s team, and then you get the A's, who are sneaky. No, it's not. All right, is it better than the NL East?
The top 4 in the Central. I'll play this game again. The top 4 in the Central is comparatively better than the top 4 in the West.
Mike. It's a 5-team division. You can't do top 4.
Well, I think comparatively to the AL Central and the AL West, I think that the Central has the better teams all together on the aggregate.
I disagree.
Okay.
I think if you're going to rank them 1 through 10, I think you'd go Texas. I think you'd go Houston. I think you'd probably go Cleveland. And then you'd probably start having a conversation about where the Royals fit in there versus where the Mariners fit in. So Royals, Mariners, probably neck and neck right there. And then I would say the Reds and the A's are sitting there right there.
What about your Tigers? You just picked them to win the division yesterday.
Fair enough. The Tigers. So the Tigers would be sitting right underneath, right above the Guardians, and that would be for me. And the Guardians are probably sitting there at 4 or 5. So you get the 2 best teams in the division, and you don't have the worst. I don't know about that. That is not the better division to me. Is the AL Central better than the NL East?
No. It's the best division in baseball.
Is it better than the NL West?
No.
No, it's not. All right. So
I think the Padres, the Dodgers.
So if we're at the point where they're not better than the AL East.
They're better than the NL Central and the AL West. That's where I'm at this point.
Let's rank them. Let's do this. So if you want to put a number to it, Texas would be number 1. All right? So Texas is number 1. The Rangers are sitting there at number 1. If you're going to rank all 10. The Astros, and I don't want to hear it, are number 2. Astros are number 2.
I disagree because the team and the Guardians went further than the Astros last year in the playoffs. The Astros, who did they lose to in the first round? Detroit? The Guardians beat Detroit in the playoffs. Am I splitting hairs here?
But the Guardians got worse.
That's just not true, man.
Tell me how they got better.
True.
Tell me how they got better. Tell me how they got better. Please, enlighten me.
It's addition by subtraction,
right.
As you said. Kyle Manzardo, who was the second prospect for the Guardians
so
last year.
we're relying on prospects. So until I see that, I'm not going to do that.
Dude, Manzardo led the team in home runs in the postseason last year.
Okay.
He had a great second half of the year. And then you get Carlos Santana in there, who's an on-base machine. He's not going to strike out all the times that Josh Naylor did in big spots in the play.
I'm talking about regular season. Who is going to be the best?
Manzardo and Noel. Big Christmas, I think, could have the home runs to get the third. I think Manzardo's hitting 30 himself.
All right, so I can't talk about this with a Cleveland fan because you have the Cleveland goggles on.
I do not have the Cleveland goggles on.
Did they get worse or did they get better?
I think they got better.
I think they got worse. Christian, did they get worse or did they get better?
No opinion.
No opinion. All right, so right there. If you want to put Cleveland there, I don't think that's fair because we're talking about this year's team.
All right, fine.
I would put the Tigers there because I think the Tigers have gotten better. Do you agree with that?
No. The Tigers spend money and it never pans out. No.
Okay. I'd put Cleveland tentatively at number 4. I'd put Seattle at number 5. I would probably I'm between Kansas City. I'd probably put Kansas City there at 6. And I can't believe I put Seattle over Kansas City, but that's probably where I'm sitting today. Because I think in healthy pitching, they got probably more talent. Kansas City there, sitting at 6. Now I'm between the Reds and the A's. just off the manager alone,